the code checked into the LeanJazz Docker project on IBM DevOps Services. In the bin directory there's some scripts to help build and run the images, and a set of directories that each contain a Docker file for each of the images. We can clone the Git repository to get the source. Then following the README we need to download some binaries, and then we can build the images and run them. Locally I'm running boot to Docker. This is the IP address that will be accessible. Moving into the bin directory, I'm going to build the images using the build all script. I'm going to fast forward through this as it takes a few minutes to build each of the images for the base image, the CLM and the UCD image and the UCD agent image. So to run the containers, I'm going to use link containers, and once again I'll use a helper utility to start them all. This will start the UCD server, then link in a couple of agent containers and link in the CLM server. Here we're tailing on the logs from the containers, and once each of the web applications has started successfully, we'll be able to have a look at the information and access the web consoles. Show info is a little simpler than docker.ps, and we can see that we have two agents, the CLM server and the UCD server. You can see on my UCD server that I have the server started and a set of agents have already been connected to it. This was achieved through the linkage. I'm going to have a look at the CLM server here. I'll also see that my server has successfully started up. To access the web console, I'm going to use that public URL, the public IP address of the Docker host. In this case, it's my boot to Docker host. And then because I started using the scripts, all of the default ports will be mapped. In this case, it's 9080 for JTS setup. I can log in with the default admin password and go through and complete the express setup. This is going to register all of the applications in the public URI. Very similarly, I'm going to access the Urban Code Deploy console. In this case, it's going to be, I'm going to go to 8080, which will then flip over to 8443. So use your public IP address, :8080. And now if I go to my resources under Urban Code Deploy, we'll see that there are indeed a set of agents that have been registered, have been given names, and are online. Also go to server settings and set up a default agent to be used for version imports. I'm going to use the UCD agent that is running locally with the server. If I want to add additional agents either to the containerized version or to some external UCD server, I can use the add agent script, give it a base agent name and the number of agents that I would like to start, and then optionally specify an external host. If you don't include a host, then it will use the Docker links to link to the UCD server. So here I've started 3 additional agents, and I'll do a different example where I start 2 agents and connect them to a traditional UCD server host. Pass in my host information. You can see the 2 new containers have been started. If I check back with the consoles, this is on the containerized version. I indeed have my 2 new agents running. And looking at my traditional server, This is the traditional server. I've also registered a couple new agents here, and I can run tests against them or include them in my environment definitions. If I want to get access to the logs of any of these processes, I can run the docker logs command. This is using the container ID. You can see I had a successful HTTP connection. More simply, I can run the show info shell script and then pass in the name of the container to the docker logs command. Thank you very much for taking the time watching this demo.